Hello everyone and welcome to the Psych Journal. My name is Fundi and in today's video I sit with Mrs. Thato Dee, who shares her journey of motherhood with us and specifically talks about how it is parenting a child who's on the autism spectrum. It's a very interesting conversation and a very long one, and we've had to split it into two. So this is part one of the conversation. I hope you guys will enjoy it. I hope you will learn something from it. If you like it, do subscribe, do share, do comment, and stay tuned for the next one. Hello everybody and welcome to the Psychology Journal. It's your girl Fundi, and in today's episode I am not alone. I'm with the gorgeous Mrs. Thato Dee, and we're going to be talking all things pregnancy, motherhood and autism. Hi Thato.
Hi Fundi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Very excited to be here, very excited about the conversation we're about to have. So thank you so much for having me.
Great.
Yeah.
Can you just introduce yourself to the people?
Oh my goodness. I'm Thato. I'm Thato Dee. I'm actually yet to change my surname. I am a mom of a little boy who's 4 years old. I am currently pregnant with my second boy. Yeah, that's me. I am a content creator. I do some bit of influencing. So that is kind of like my current day job. And other than that, I'm just a mom to my little boy.
Oh. All right. I've really enjoyed your content both on Instagram and on YouTube.
Thank you.
You've done a lot in terms of sharing how parenthood or motherhood has been, especially being a stay-at-home mom. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that is a topic that a lot of people are very interested in. Every single time I put up a question and an answer thing, people are like, "How is it being a stay-at-home mom?" Yeah, it's been an experience. In the beginning, it wasn't the plan, right? The plan was always to go back to work and do something, you know, like in what I've studied. I've studied media studies, and so the plan was to go back to work. But soon after I had Maru, we got into COVID, and then when COVID happened, I ended up staying with him for an extended period of time, and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with just being there for everything and being present, being hands-on, which was so shocking to me because growing up I wasn't really good with kids.
Oh really?
Yeah, I wasn't.
Okay,
I was not
depressing.
great, and a lot of people were questioning my maternal stuff when they found out I was pregnant. They were like, and all that, and I was very awkward with kids. So it was a real shock to me that I really enjoyed motherhood the way that I did.
Yeah.
And you know, I ended up having a conversation with my husband. I was like, hey, I really love this. I really want to be able to be present with him for the next few years. So if you're willing to hold down the fort, can I just have a couple of years with him and all that fun stuff? And after he got diagnosed with autism, which is something we'll get into a little later on, it really further, you know, helped with that decision, because it was even more important for me to be there for him and to help in those formative years and just be present and work hard at making his future as best as it possibly can.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think, anyway, I'll speak for myself. I've been quite interested in actually like knowing what that looks like, because like there's always this battle between, do I want to be a stay-at-home mom when I am a mom, or do I want to be a working mom? Because there's also this idea that, you know, strong independent woman, you're able to push corporate and then come back home and be like a boss wife and a boss mom and do everything all together and have this balanced life of some sort. So I've just always wondered, like, what does your day look like, you know?
What does my day look like? Listen, I wish in my own idea. I wish that I could do it all at the same time. I wish I could be a boss at work and a boss at home. But I know that something's gotta give. Especially for me, when it comes to balance, I know that I don't know how to prioritize the way probably maybe other moms are able to do. But I hear from most moms that it's difficult for both stay-at-home moms, and there is still something you're missing out on. There's still that feeling of like, is this the right decision? Am I, letting a part of myself go? Am I this and am I that? So there's still that. It's not like I'm just out here just enjoying. There's still that little feeling there. But I've learned to really be content with what I've decided, and knowing that I am young and my kids will grow, and at some point I will have a bit more time on my hands to be able to pursue the things that I want to pursue, because I still want to be a boss. I still have ambitions, even though my kids, I stay home with my kids. There are still things that I'm working on behind the scenes and all that stuff that are working towards these goals that I'm eventually gonna put my whole into when my kids are older. But as far as what my day looks like, wake up in the morning, wrestle with their 4-year-old, make sure that their 4-year-old is ready for school, and very energetic boy. So from the moment he opens his eyes, it's go, 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 go. So we get him ready for school. Luckily, I have help at home. I have auntie who helps with other things when I'm making him his lunch. She's feeding him. Or when I'm bathing him, she is cooking motoro in the kitchen, so I do have help, especially now that I am pregnant. I do need that help. Excuse me. So I wake up in the morning, we help get him ready for school. Then dad does drop off. And then I pretty much spend the morning doing my thing, which is just relaxing for now. Because I'm pregnant, I try to relax as much as possible, because I know once that 1 o'clock hits and he's back, it's another go, go, go. Right. And then he has a little routine, so it's always like we go through the motions, Sometimes days look different, but because he's a big routine person, our days are pretty much the same. We go for walks, we do a little home therapy, we do a lot of he loves to watch TV and dance, and always trying to get somebody to do it with him. So there's that also. But that is pretty much my day.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
It's fun, but there are times when I could use some adult conversation. Sometimes I feel like my brain is getting fried. Like I'm not smart anymore, because these songs that are Cocomelon and Miss Rachel, they are always ringing in my head, that I feel like I'm getting dumber. I think I'm getting dumb. But it's so fulfilling. I think it's something that I feel like if I didn't have, it would really put a hole in my life or in my thing, because I see how hard my husband works and how long the hours that he works and how much he wants to be home as well. And I just think about, if it was both of us in that situation, where would we get the time to be able to spend with our child? So the fact that at least one parent is home also gives him some comfort to know that, at least there's somebody that I know for sure is as obsessed with this child and is invested in their livelihood as I am, who is at home caring for him.
Okay, so let's take things back to your pregnancy with Maru. Maru is your first child.
My first child,
yes. I've gone through your content, and I know that it was something that was planned and all of that. Seemed all exciting. Can you tell us about that? How was it, and how did you and hubby prepare for parenthood?
We had been together for about 6 years, when we came to a point where we were like, hey, I think it's time to take that step. And we were looking back on it now with the second pregnancy. We were pretty naive then. We were young. We were just excited to grow our relationship, to grow our family. And we were not married yet at the time. but we were pretty naive, we were pretty excited, you know. My husband had just gotten a job, and he was like, financially we're in a good spot, so let's see if we can do this, right? And then after that, that's when we're like, hey, let's do this. And we started trying the first month, and I got pregnant the first month. And it was a shocker, because I always obviously hear these stories of infertility, and especially when you're actively trying, which my heart pours out to everyone who's really struggling with that. Like when you're actively trying, it usually takes some time. It could take months, it could take years. So I was shocked in the sense that, wow, I'm actually pregnant. But I was also excited to know that, okay, yeah, I'm pregnant. This is what we were working towards. And all that. So in terms of preparing for the pregnancy, obviously finances were a big thing for us. We wanted to make sure that, because I had just graduated from UB, and my husband was the only one who was working. My then boyfriend, I guess. He was the only one who was working. So we also wanted to make sure that with the money that was coming in, we're able to take care of a third person. And so we did the numbers, and we're like, okay, I think they look good. We can spare a little 1,000 bulas on the side to take care of another baby, another child. And then another big thing was really making sure that our relationship was in a good spot.
Definitely.
The foundation of it, all our values were aligned, and all that stuff. Because hey, bringing another person into the mix can really be, you know what I mean? And especially when you have to make decisions together for that person. You really have to have your values aligned. And so we had to really have those conversations. What is your parenting style? What do you think that's gonna look like? Where are we at in our relationship? Are we good? Are we happy? Are we in a good spot? And we thought, we're good, But at the end of the day, life still happens, because these changes will still rock the boats one way or the other. But because we were very confident in the foundation that we had, we were able to get through it. And so, that is kind of like the things that informed us to say, let's have a baby, right? So the reason why I'm saying we were a bit naive is that I think we didn't really imagine the gravity of it. In terms of, even for me, for the pregnancy, I had no idea what pregnancy was, or what it looked like, and what it was going to look like for me. The only information that I had was secondhand information from other people talking about their experiences and what I see in the movies and all of that. And boy, was it very different from what I saw in the movies. I think my first pregnancy was pretty difficult for me. The changes were a bit hard for me. I think I had a difficult time coming into terms of what was going on. My first trimester was really hard. I had something called HG. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No,
It's I hope I say this right, and I know I'm not gonna say it right. It's called hyperemesis gravidatum, something like that.
If it's not correct, we'll put it right.
But it's called HG, and it's basically severe morning sickness, where I had it all day, every day for about 4 months. I was sick. I vomited. I couldn't keep anything down. I couldn't eat. I even lost some weight. You're supposed to gain weight during pregnancy, but I lost weight. It was really, really difficult. I was dizzy all the time. I went to the hospital a few times where I had to get some fluids in through a drip and all of that. So it was really difficult there in the beginning. So it was hard for me to really enjoy it and really get into the groove of things of like, I'm pregnant, I wanted this, I'm happy. And then there were all these other changes with my body, and I'm getting bigger now, with the second trimester, with the bodily changes. Like, I'm getting bigger now, the stretch marks, the acne, and it was just so much that I was having a difficult time really feeling like, am I gonna go back? Am I gonna feel normal again? Because at that point it didn't feel like, because I hadn't experienced it before. At that point I was like, I don't know if this is ever gonna feel normal. I don't know if I'm ever gonna be the same person, or feel like myself and all that. So it was really difficult for me mentally at the time. So that is kind of like what I mean when I say I was a bit naive to going into it thinking that it's gonna be a breeze, we're gonna have a nice beautiful baby and it's gonna be a good time.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. I love the fact that you and your husband, or then boyfriend, literally sat down and said, we are making this decision together. We are organizing ourselves and checking, are we ready for this decision, and actually going in there together to have a baby. Because even just on social media nowadays, there's like a lot of talk about how like relationship and then you have a baby and then people break up or things get messed up and then either you have a runaway dad or the mom is not really fully in there because perhaps they were not really prepared for that, or maybe they didn't realize that the foundational relationship is not that strong, and it gets shaken by this thing that's supposed to come as a blessing, to the couple. So that's very wonderful. And I also, I guess, appreciate how you were saying you were quite naive, and I don't know, like I mean, I recently got married, and I've had some people say, from here now, and then I also get people who are like, no, you should wait a bit. Take your time. Ghana, this thing is not easy. What are you gonna feed the child? Do you have the time? Are you mentally prepared? And all of that stuff. So it's like you were saying, it's definitely a journey, and it's unique to everybody. You can watch all the content and do all the research that you can, and then you experience it for yourself, and you're like,
this is
nobody
not
told
what I
me
saw.
about this.
True. Very true.
All right. So you've taken us through what preparing for pregnancy was like, and also, I guess, a little bit about how your pregnancy was. All right, now let's go to Maru's diagnosis. We're here to talk about your experience about motherhood, I guess, and I guess specifically talk a little bit more about the autism experience in this sense. So you have a very cute little bundle of joy.
The best.
After he was born, was there anything that you felt maybe, I don't know, what is it that got you to a point where you're like, okay, is there something that's probably wrong with my child? Do I need to take them somewhere? All of that.
For me, I had the perfect child, right? He was the easiest newborn that I could think of, because getting out of a difficult pregnancy, I even said this to my husband, I'm like, this is God just saying, you know what, my child, you've had a tough time. Let's give you like the easiest newborn stage. He was so chill, he didn't cry much, he slept all day, he was just the perfect baby. So he was just my perfect child, and for the most of his first year, everything just seemed great. He was developing typically, he was reaching all his milestones on time. The doctor was not seeing any red flags for anything. Everything was just looking normal. He was even starting to say some words. He had said a couple words. By the time I think he had said maybe 2 or 3 words by the time he was 1. And then around the time he was about 18 months old, I started then noticing, obviously when I got pregnant, I started following other moms who were pregnant with me at the same time. You know, your Bomarang, Bomang, and all that, and the other South African mommy content creators and American mommy content creators and all those people. So I started following them, and I could see from their content when they're posting their kids were a bit more expressive with language. They were talking a bit more. They were a bit here, you know what I mean? And then I was like, you know, I don't want to get into a zone where I'm comparing my child with other kids online, because I know kids are different and they reach milestones at different times. But obviously it was a cause for concern for me. Then I'm like, okay, you know, maybe let me just get online and then start looking up some things that I can do to just help him at home, just become a bit more expressive. Because at this time he was saying a few words, but I could notice that he wasn't quite saying as much as the other kids his age were. So I got into Google, started looking up some things, and we started doing some things at home, this and that and that and that. This is when he was about 18 months. And I remember one night I went on the internet, I saw a YouTube video, and it was some lady, white lady, I remember her very well. And the title of the video was, is it a speech delay or is it autism? At that point, autism was not on my radar at all. I just thought I had a boy child who had a speech delay. Right? I wasn't thinking autism or anything like that, but something just said click on that video and watch it. So I click on the video, I watch it, she starts talking, and the more she started talking about all these signs and symptoms of autism, I started being like, wait, this sounds like my child, you know? This sounds very much like him, all these characteristics. And then I remember then going into a rabbit hole. Then I started clicking every autism video that I could find. Clicking. You know how YouTube works. Once you watch one video, one subject, they will keep coming. So there I was all night long. I don't even think I slept that night. Watching. At some point I woke my husband up. I'm like, you have to see this. And he woke up and he watched it, and I remember both of us our eyes just filling up with tears because we were terrified. Because we're like, what is happening? Like, is this what is this? Because we didn't even know exactly what autism was. So we just went to the extremest of cases, and we were scared and like, what is going on? And then that night we just took a breath and whatever. And then for the next couple of weeks, maybe to a month, we just started observing him. We started observing him, observing these signs and these symptoms. Then the more we just observed him, the more it just came apparent to us that, yeah, we need to really get him some help. We really need to go to a professional, a specialist of some kind, and just get him some kind of help. So that's what kind of got us to a point where we needed to go and see what was going on.
I think from what you're saying, I notice how important it is to be observant. You know, and I guess this is something that comes even before the child is born, for you to have foreknowledge. Okay, no, this is where when I expect him to be sitting or walking or talking or doing whatever, so that when those things don't happen at that time, you start being a little bit alert. To say what could be going on, and not really to say, hey, at this point, then there's a problem, because we have other cases where thought that the kid is just delayed, like you were saying.
It could be like an isolated delay, you know.
It could be just an isolated delay, like you were saying. So I think, that's quite important to really observe and pay attention to what's really happening to your child as they grow. Okay, so you guys now have this idea. You went from, okay, we're thinking this is just speech delay, he'll be fine. You've now come across this content, you've now been introduced to this term of autism. From there, where do you go?
So the first person that we went to obviously was his pediatrician. This is the pediatrician that had been seeing him since birth. So we went and had a conversation with her, and she was very nonchalant about it. And she was just like, Maru's great. He's just a wonderful, beautiful boy. And you know, autism is an invisible disability, so you can't really see autism. But she was just like, okay, I understand you guys having concerns and all that stuff, but he's still a bit young, because at the time he hadn't even turned 2 yet. And he, sorry, and she was like, you know, he's still quite young, and yes, I can see there is some delays in communication compared to his peers, but he is still a bit too young and now, and he hasn't been to school yet. Maybe it's just a social thing, which is coming out of COVID, and these COVID babies haven't done a lot of social interactions. So it could be that. He's also a boy, which is also something I hear all the time. He's also a boy, and it takes some time for boys and all that stuff. So maybe let's just take a beat before we start calling it the A word, because at that time, you know, it was like a bit of a taboo. Don't say the A word. Before we say the A word, let's just try not to, you know, panic a little bit. But, you know, what I'm gonna do, that's what she said. She's like, I'm gonna write you a reference for a speech therapist, so you guys can go and have him assessed and maybe get him in some speech therapy to just kind of help him in that regard. So that's what we did. After she did that reference, we went and looked for a speech therapist, and we went to see a speech therapist, and she immediately looked at him for 5-6 minutes, and she was like, yep, that is autism, all right. But obviously she was also not trying to, I remember she was really trying not to be too definite about it and say, yeah, he has autism and stuff like that, because, you know, you don't know how the parent is going to take it, and if they're going to be like, hey, I don't want to go reeling, or like, you know, just kind of be so aggressive with it. So she was kind of really trying to be like, yes, I see the signs and I see the red flags. So yes, I do see some things there, but also she was like, he's still young. There's still some time to work on him and to talk, to get him to a place where he can communicate, yada, yada, yada. So while she agreed that there are some red flags, she didn't really want to make any defined, you know, definite conclusions. And then after that, we were like on a specialist tour. We went on to see an occupational therapist. The occupational therapist also did the same thing. She was like, yep, there are some red flags. There's some things that he's doing that scream out autism. But again, he's young. Just bring him to therapy and we'll start working with him and stuff before we definitely say it's autism. And also maybe take him to school. At this time, he hadn't been to school. You know, he hadn't turned 2 yet. He hadn't been to school, so all that stuff, like, let's just see how he is socially and all that stuff. So everybody, while they were like, okay, we see some things, but we don't really want to call it that just yet because he's still so young. So then we waited it out until, I think at this point it was around mid-year before his birthday. He turned 2 in October, and then in January we got him in school. And then we were like, okay, both of us, me and my husband, were like, you know what we're gonna do is just get him in school like everybody advises, and have him see how he does in school. And at the same time he started school, he also started speech therapy. So, and see how he does and all that stuff. And then we'll just have conversations with the teachers and everybody who is kind of going to be giving him care at the time. And then that is when we can really now go and seek out a diagnosis.
Right.
But at the point where he was now in school, when he started school in January, I had known, I just knew. I was like, I don't need anybody to give me any kind of diagnosis. I know there is something going on, and I just want him to get the help that he needs as much as he can get. So by the time I took him to school, I told everybody, all his teachers, even the principal at the school, that, hey, my child has red flags for autism, so please try to help him in this way, or try to be patient with him in this way. Just basically advocating for him in the best way that I knew how, but obviously being respectful and not being too, I want to get, you know. But yeah, so that's kind of like how we got to a point where we were like, okay, what's going on? And then after that first, what is it called? It's a term. I was about to say semester. That first term,
Yeah.
while he was improving, and we could see that, oh, there's a bit more of like social presence, there's a bit more words coming in, the symptoms and the signs were still there. And then we seeked out a pediatrician here in Gaborone who was kind of like working a lot with children with autism. And then that's when we went to her, and then she's the one who confirmed it for us to say, yes, he is autistic. And also I don't know if I should say he has an autism diagnosis per se, because it's not like it's a stamp you get on a card or anything, or there's a card you walk around with or anything. It's just to be told, yeah, he has autism. And then you just have to keep telling people who want to understand him more,
Right.
or when you take him to school and stuff like that. So I don't know yet if, because there's a lot of word also around of like there's an age where you have to get the official diagnosis and stuff like that, stuff. So I'm not quite familiar with all of that, but that's when the doctor told us that, yeah, he does have autism. But at the time I was so okay with it,
Right.
in the sense that I had already just made peace with it. I was fine with it. I had already known that, yeah, no, this is my child, and this is what his journey is going to look like.
Okay, so at the time when you, I guess, got introduced to this term, and you're being told about it and you were doing your research, what was your understanding of what autism is? And also, as you were making those observations, what symptoms, I guess, in the spectrum did he have?
Yeah. So in my understanding, so I had a very, very, very vague understanding of autism going into it, right? I had what most people would have, which is the extremist of cases of like the nonverbal, those who need a lot of support, or Einstein genius level type, right? Those were the two extremes of autism that I didn't know. As far as the nuance and the spectrum part of it, I didn't have a lot of knowledge on that. But with my research, I started finding out that autism is a whole spectrum, and it looks very different from one child to the other, one individual to the other, because it's a lifelong disability. So that is when now I was starting to be like, oh, okay, so this is what this is. And during my research, I tried to look for adults with autism, maybe who had shown symptoms or signs that looked like my boy, and just to have an idea on what his future is gonna look like. But you can't find the same autism from two people. So it was very, even with my interactions with mothers who have autistic kids now, when they talk about their children and I talk about my child, we talk about completely different children, and it's like they don't have the same disability. While they will have similar signs, which are quite common with autistic kids. Their mannerisms, their behavior, what triggers them, what lights them up, what makes them happy, it's completely different. So I had to really get into deep research of like what it was and stuff. And even now, I still feel like it's something that I'm still trying to understand and learn more of. So I can't really say definitely what it is, apart from the fact that it's a neurological disorder that affects social and communication skills. And yeah, so as far as the signs and symptoms that we saw was, first, obviously, it's the speech delay that we talked about. And then one other thing that he wasn't doing was that he didn't have a lot of eye contact. He wasn't really looking at you in the eye. He would look past you, but he didn't spend a lot of time looking at you in the eye. By the way, most of the symptoms that I'm talking about now, he doesn't have anymore. We worked really hard to get him to a point where he's able to move past them. Which another thing was that when you called his name, he didn't turn. He didn't acknowledge you. At some point, we thought he was deaf. Just something I forgot to talk about. It's also another thing we went through, where we had to go through ENTs to make sure that it's not an ear problem where he doesn't hear anything. So he wasn't responding to his name. Socially, he wasn't really interacting with kids who were of similar ages with him. My sister has a boy child as well who is about 6 months younger than him.
Yeah.
And he just would pass him. Like, he didn't even acknowledge his existence at all. Even that's something that he's still dealing with now, actually. What's another thing that he didn't do? He was a very picky eater, wanted to eat the same things every single day. There's a bunch. we could stay here.
Yeah.
We could stay here, but there was a lot of other things, but mainly it was communication and social. And I think a lot of things, he had tantrums a lot because of the fact that he wasn't able to communicate his needs, and he felt misunderstood. So his temperament was quite high. So it made him just get angry very quickly, get agitated very quickly. Even routine, he loved a specific routine. Once you switch something up,
It's a problem.
it becomes a problem. He likes familiarity. If he walked into this room and doesn't understand it, doesn't know anything about it, he would really just have a little overwhelming experience. And that is kind of like some of the things that we saw with him at an early age. So those are the signs, but there's a lot more.
Yeah.
I could write a book. Yeah.
All right. So I also watch a bit of content about people's stories, especially with autism, mainly because of my work, but also I'm just interested in that. I also have a little cousin who has the autism diagnosis, so it's quite a topic of interest for me. So from the content I've watched and some of the interactions I've had with my clients' parents, I've realized that it's very difficult for some parents. There are some parents who, by that, when they get this diagnosis, it's not just about the child, it affects also the relationship between them. I've encountered a couple that actually broke up because of this. The child got diagnosed with autism, and then mommy was all in there protective and saying, oh my God, we need to do this and that. And dad was still a bit left behind, because it was a bit difficult to really wrap his mind around what does this actually mean. This is not a disease, because I guess there's no physical thing to it, right? And there are no tablets that you can give for it. And so there was a bit of conflict in terms of how to parent the child, how to relate with the child, where some of the tantrums and perhaps, I guess, the structure that the child needed, the picky eating and all of that. Sometimes parents don't really understand that, and it's like, whatever the case may be. And parents may, I guess, process things differently. You mentioned that you and your husband had to sit down and say, hey, this is what's going on, let's start observing together. How did the diagnosis affect you guys? How did you guys process it together?
I think I'm not gonna lie and say like we were on the same level in terms of action plan, right? Obviously, I was more pushing for stuff, and he was a bit more delayed in terms of accepting it and really coming into terms that it is what it is. I remember there was a time he was kind of even reluctant to say the autism word, and also reluctant to tell people that it's autism, because he was like, I'm still not sure. I still don't feel like it is. I feel like we still need to do this and do that and da. You're still caught up in the causes and cures phase, you know. And then I was just like, we need to get into the action now. We need to figure out how to help him, how to advocate for him, how to make this world a better place for him. And so it took him a little bit longer, but not too long, to catch up with me. But what really helped us maybe get on the same page was to make sure that we attend all of these appointments together. Make sure if we're going to OT, we're going to OT. If we're going to speech, we're going to speech. If we're going to see a doctor about this, we did that. And one thing my husband was really championed at is being present. He will show up one way or the other. If he needs to call in sick at work or do something, he will make sure that he shows up. And that really helped him maybe come into terms with it. Also, I'm quite pushy. I don't know if I'm pushy or, I'm very determined. So I was really determined into getting him to that place as well, to make sure that it's okay, and also to make it more positive than negative. Like, not be like, we're in a panic, oh my God, I wanted to come to him as well with solutions, to be like, hey, if it is autism, look, this is a person with autism thriving. This is a person with autism doing this and writing books and going to college, doing this and that it does get better. These kids do get better, and these kids do grow up to do amazing things in the world. And this is still Rue. Like, this is still the child that we've been loving on and just being in awe of, because he still did all of these amazing things still, Yes, he has autism, but he's still brilliant. He still knows his ABCs, and he's not 2 yet. He still knows his numbers and counts to 100, and he's not 2 yet. He's still brilliant. So the label is just a label, and we just need to move past that. And he was, I think, able to just being present at these therapy sessions and all of these things. Because I remember the first year of therapy, we went to every single therapy session with him. We made sure that we were there, we were learning, learning how to speak to him, how to help him at home, what exercises to do, and all these things. Like, we were really trying to make sure that these are things that we are also going to be able to implement, because the 30 minutes to 40 to 1 hour is not enough a week to really teach him or get him to a point where he is, better. So we wanted to make sure that we are learning as much as possible, so that we can also do these exercises at home. We really worked really hard, and communication was really high on our list, and that was something that I was very intentional about, in terms of, like, I'm not gonna take on this fight by myself. And that is something that I saw a lot with the autism community, in terms of the moms, where they were the ones who were championing this. Like, I told him straight up, I was like, hey, I can't do this by myself. We decided on this baby together. We're gonna raise him together, autism or not, okay? And because we were able to just keep communicating and just touch base if he's feeling things and uncomfortable with something, or just feeling bad about anything. I'm like, just communicate, just talk to me, and I'll try my best to not be too judgy or to any kind of way. But it was a journey. I'm not gonna lie, it was a journey, and I do hear the statistics, which scare me so much. I hear them all the time. Even the doctor now who is helping Maru always reminds us of the statistics, like over 80% of parents who have autistic kids end up getting a divorce. And it's something that it still scares us to this point, but because we are so aware of that, we try to be a lot more mindful in the way that we interact with each other and the way that we interact with our child. And we try to have individual relationships with him as well. Like, I should have my own relationship with Rue, he should have his own relationship with Rue. And it really helps just kind of not be like, when they're together, overly exert myself, because there were moments where I would be like, hey, that's how you talk. You don't talk to him like that. You make sure like this. You don't discipline him like that. You do it like this and stuff. And it would frustrate him sometimes. where he would just be like, no, but I feel like everything that I'm doing it wrong.
Right.
But now I'm like, okay, they're not gonna have the same relationship that I have with him. Maybe I'm more nurturing, I'm more motherly and stuff like that. But Rue likes the rough play, you know, they like to spin around and push each other all over the place. I should just be like, okay, that's the kind of thing. I should be okay with that. And, you know, it's a journey, but we're still getting through it. We're still learning. It's only been a couple of years, so yeah, but my heart really does pour out to parents who are trying to navigate it.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, but we'll get there.
Yeah.